first time Paige Sullivan cooked me dinner by candlelight, she had spent 2 hours getting ready for another man. That is not a sentence a sane person expects to say about his roommate. I was standing in our apartment doorway at 7:43 on a Thursday night, holding a grocery bag with paper towels, cold medicine, and the cheap cereal I swore I didn't still eat at 25. I'm Miles Carter, junior project coordinator at a small architecture firm in Chicago, which meant I spent most of my days fixing other people's measurements and most of my evenings pretending frozen dumplings counted as a personality. Then I walked into our kitchen and forgot how doors worked. Paige had turned our ugly little dining nook into something out of a movie. White taper candles, cloth napkins, a bottle of red wine breathing on the counter like it paid rent. The old jazz record player she'd found at a yard sale was playing low in the corner, soft enough to feel accidental. And there she was, my roommate. Soft blue dress, bare shoulders, hair pinned up in a way that looked effortless but probably wasn't. A tiny silver necklace resting at the base of her throat. She was leaning over the stove tasting sauce from a wooden spoon, and when she looked up, her face changed from nervous hope to panic. "Miles," she said, "you're early. I live here. You're still early." I glanced at the table. 2 plates, 2 wine glasses, 2 chairs angled toward each other like they were already keeping secrets. "Oh," I said, because I am eloquent under pressure. "Date night." Paige wiped her hands on a towel and gave me a look. "Please don't say it like you just found evidence at a crime scene." "I didn't. Evidence usually smells less like garlic butter." Her mouth twitched. That almost smile had been a problem for me since the week she moved in. Paige and I had been roommates for 10 months. Not friends from childhood, not exes trying to be mature, not one of those situations where the internet would immediately tell us we were making terrible decisions. We were two people who answered the same rental listing and discovered we could share a bathroom without wanting to call lawyers. She worked as a stylist at a boutique downtown and did freelance alterations at our kitchen table when she couldn't sleep. I had learned that she talked to stubborn zippers like they were misbehaving dogs. She had learned that I labeled leftovers with dates because my father once told me love was remembering the small things and then forgot most of them. We had rules. No leaving dishes overnight. No loud calls after 10. No dating roommates. That last one had been said jokingly by Paige while we assembled the IKEA bookshelf in the living room. She had been holding a screwdriver between her teeth. I had been trying not to notice how close her knee was to mine. "Dating roommates is how people end up moving out with one sock and emotional damage," she'd said. "Agreed," I told her. I had meant it. Mostly. Because wanting Paige was inconvenient in the same way wanting oxygen was inconvenient. It showed up constantly and acted innocent. She was funny without trying too hard, kind without performing it, beautiful in a way that didn't ask permission. The kind of woman who could turn a grocery store bouquet into something graceful and then threaten a printer with personal violence 5 minutes later. So when I saw the candles and the blue dress in the second plate, my chest did something petty and embarrassing. "Who's the lucky guy?" I asked. "His name is Aaron." "Of course it is." "What does that mean?" "Nothing. Aaron sounds like he owns a tasteful watch. He works in finance." "There it is." She pointed the towel at me. "Be nice." I'm being incredibly nice. I haven't even asked if he says things like circle back during romantic moments. Paige laughed then, really laughed, and it landed in the room like a match struck too close to dry paper. For a second, we just looked at each other. Then her phone lit up on the counter. Her eyes went to it so fast that mine followed. "Aaron, running late." "So sorry, 20 minutes. Paige exhaled, all that hope settling back into place. "See, totally fine." "Totally. You can still use the kitchen if you need." I held up my grocery bag. "No, no, I'll take my cereal and disappear like a respectable goblin." "Miles." "What?" "You don't have to disappear. Just maybe don't come out wearing those gray sweatpants with the hole in the knee." I looked down. "These are my formal sweatpants. They are a cry for help." I should have gone to my room. That would have been the adult thing, the safe thing, the roommate rule thing. Instead, I lingered by the counter while she adjusted the silverware for the third time. "Are you nervous?" I asked. "No." "Paige." She stopped touching the fork. A little, she admitted. That did something to me, too. Paige was confident in public, sharp when she had to be. She could send back a wrong order at a restaurant with such polite firmness that waiters thanked her for the experience. But standing there in our apartment under warm candlelight, waiting for a man who was already late, she looked younger, not weak, just open. I haven't done this in a while, she said. A candle ambush? A dinner I actually care about. I set the grocery bag down carefully. The joke I had ready faded before it reached my mouth. Then he'd better know what he's walking into, I said. She looked at me. What am I walking into? I should have said something simple, something roommate safe. Instead, I said, you. Her expression softened so suddenly that I felt the floor tilt. Then her phone buzzed again. Another text. Aaron. So embarrassed. Got stuck with clients. Rain check? The candles kept burning, the sauce kept simmering, the jazz kept playing. Paige stared at the screen for a long second, and I watched her face do the worst thing a face can do when someone hurts you. It tried to act like it hadn't. Well, she said lightly. Too lightly. Good thing I made enough for leftovers. Paige? It's fine. No, it's not. She gave me a bright little smile that didn't reach her eyes. Don't do that. Do what? Look at me like I'm something somebody dropped. That hit harder than I expected. Because the truth was, I wasn't looking at her with pity. I was looking at her in a blue dress, in candlelight, with wine waiting and dinner getting cold, and I was thinking the kind of thought a man should not think about the woman whose name was on the same lease. I was thinking, he's an idiot. Then Paige did something I still remember in slow motion. She took Aaron's plate from the far side of the table, walked around the candles, set it down in front of the chair closest to me. Then she pulled that chair out with one hand, looked me straight in the eye, and said, "Sit down, Miles." I stared at her. Paige, I cooked dinner for a date who never came. Her voice trembled once, then steadied. I lit the candles, I opened the wine. I am wearing a dress that took me 40 minutes and one minor zipper injury. So either sit down or I'm going to eat emotional pasta alone and pretend the breadbasket understands me. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to touch her face. I wanted to run to my room and shut the door before I ruined the one peaceful place I had left. Instead, I pulled out the chair. Only because the breadbasket has never appreciated you properly. She smiled, and this time it was real. I sat. Paige poured wine into my glass, then hers. Her hand brushed mine when she reached for the bottle. It was barely anything, a touch, an accident. Except she didn't pull away right away. Neither did I. The whole apartment seemed to shrink around that small place where our skin met. Then Paige lifted her glass. To being stood up, she said. I raised mine slowly. Terrible toast. To better company than expected, she corrected. That's arrogant. That's accurate. We drank. The wine was good. The pasta was better. Paige had made lemon cream linguine with seared scallops, roasted asparagus, and bread warm enough to make a person believe in second chances. I told her this, and she said, Careful, Carter. Compliments are how I know you're after my half of the security deposit. You caught me. I seduce through seafood commentary. You're doing alarmingly well. There it was again. That line we always danced near and never crossed. Only this time, there were candles. This time, she had moved his plate to me. This time, when she leaned forward and asked if I wanted more wine, her knee bumped mine under the table and stayed there. I looked at her. She looked back. And for the first time since we became roommates, Paige didn't make a joke to save us. She said very quietly, Can I tell you something awful? My throat tightened. Yeah. She glanced down at the table, at the two plates, at the flame reflected in her wine glass. I think part of me was relieved when he canceled. I didn't move. Paige looked up at me then, eyes bright and scared and brave all at once. Because when I heard your key in the door, she whispered, I was happier than I was when his name lit up my phone. For one dangerous second, I thought I had misheard her. The candles wavered between us. The jazz record popped softly in the corner. Outside, rain tapped the kitchen window like it was trying to get our attention. Paige sat across from me with her hands wrapped around her wine glass, looking like she had just handed me something breakable and expected me to drop it. I didn't. I couldn't. You were happier to see me? I asked. She gave a tiny laugh. Don't make me repeat it. I used all my courage on the first attempt. Sorry, I set my glass down. I'm just trying to figure out if I'm still allowed to breathe. Her mouth curved, but her eyes stayed serious. Miles. Yeah? Say something real. That was Paige. Even embarrassed, even vulnerable, she wouldn't let me hide behind a joke for long. So I looked at her across the little table we'd bought secondhand from a couple who had argued in front of us for 20 minutes over whether it was walnut or pine. I looked at her blue dress and her nervous fingers and the candlelight warming the side of her face. And I told the truth. When I walked in and saw all this, I said, I hated him a little. Aaron, I hated his tasteful watch, his finance job, his ability to be expected here. Paige's lips parted. I kept going because stopping now would have been worse. I know that's not fair. I know you can date whoever you want, obviously. We're roommates, friends, adults with a lease and a shared hatred of the upstairs neighbor's tap dancing phase. It's not a phase, she murmured. He's getting worse. Exactly. We've survived too much for me to lie to your face. Her fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. So here it is, I said. I was jealous. Paige stared at me. Then she whispered, Oh. Not a bad oh. Not an I need to move out immediately. Oh. A soft, stunned oh that made every nerve in my body sit up and pay attention. I leaned back, forcing distance because I suddenly wanted none. But I don't want tonight to be some weird consolation prize. I don't want you to feel bad and then tomorrow morning regret that I was here instead of him. Her expression changed at that, not hurt. Challenged. Miles Carter, she said, did you just imply I'm confusing you with a finance guy named Aaron? I am saying emotions are complicated. I am saying you have insulted my taste. I'm trying to be honorable. You're being annoying in a noble cardigan. I'm not wearing a cardigan. Emotionally, you are. I laughed before I could stop myself, and the tightness broke. Paige smiled too, but it faded into something warmer as she reached across the table. This time, the touch wasn't accidental. Her fingers slid over mine. I'm not confused, she said. I'm scared. That word sobered me. Of me? Of this. Her thumb brushed once over my knuckle. Of wanting something and living with it? Of opening a door we can't politely close if it goes badly? Of losing the person who knows how I take my coffee and that I cry during dog adoption videos, but not sad movies? You cried during that documentary about the goose. He had loyalty issues. He was a goose. He was complex. I turned my hand beneath hers and laced our fingers together. Paige looked down at our joined hands like she hadn't expected me to meet her there. I'm scared too, I admitted. Her gaze lifted. I wasn't good at this part. I could assemble furniture, build models, estimate square footage. I could tell you where a load-bearing wall was, but my own heart? The thing had been renovated badly by people who left early. My parents loved loudly, I said. Then they stopped loving at all. After that, every place I lived felt temporary. I think that's why this apartment mattered so much. Why you mattered so much. It was the first time coming home felt like something I got to keep. Paige's eyes softened in a way that nearly undid me. You make it feel like home for me, too, she said. The words settled between us, heavier than flirting, gentler than a confession. I squeezed her hand. Then we go slow. Slow, she repeated. Painfully responsible. Emotionally cardigan-like. Exactly. She studied me, then tilted her head. What does slow mean? It means tonight is dinner. It already is dinner. Then tonight is a date. Her breath caught. I felt absurdly brave and completely terrified. A real one, I said. Not because some idiot canceled. Not because the candles were already lit. Because I'm asking you, Paige. Sit here with me. Let me be the man across the table. Her face changed. All the guarded humor, all the careful roommate boundaries, all the pretending this was accidental, it slipped. What remained was want, clear and bright and aimed straight at me. Yes, she said. Just that. Yes. It was the best word I had ever heard. We finished dinner differently after that. Not louder, not dramatic, but every ordinary movement became charged. She asked about my worst first date, and I told her about the woman who brought flashcards of personality questions and graded my answers. B minus? Paige said, offended on my behalf. For you? I hesitated on favorite soup. That's serious. I panicked and said oatmeal. She covered her face. Miles. I know. No wonder you're single. You invited me to this date. I'm reassessing. Then I asked about hers, and she told me about a man who spent an entire dinner explaining cryptocurrency using packets of sugar. Did you escape? I asked. I told him I had a fabric emergency. Was that real? No, but he didn't respect silk, so it felt spiritually true. We laughed like we always did, but now her foot nudged mine under the table on purpose. Now when I reached to refill her water, she watched my hand. Now silence didn't feel empty. It felt like standing close to a locked room and realizing we both had keys. After dinner, Paige carried plates to the sink. I followed with the glasses. You cook, I said. I clean. That is dangerously attractive. Wait until you see me soak a pan. She leaned her hip against the counter. Show off. The kitchen was small. It had always been small. But with both of us at the sink, it became impossible not to notice every inch. Her shoulder brushed my arm as she reached for a towel. I turned at the same time. Suddenly she was right there, close enough that I could see a tiny freckle near her collarbone, close enough that her perfume, something soft and floral under garlic and lemon, went straight to my head. Neither of us moved. Paige looked up at me. Slow, she whispered, but it sounded less like a warning than a question. I set the plate down in the sink. Very slow, I said. Then I lifted my hand and touched one loose strand of hair near her cheek. I didn't tuck it back right away. I let my fingers hover there, giving her every chance to step away. She didn't. She leaned into my hand. My heart went from nervous to useless. Paige, I said. Her eyes dropped to my mouth. That was all the permission my restraint could survive. I bent toward her, slow enough for sanity, and kissed her. It was gentle, barely more than a press of lips. And still, the whole room rearranged itself. Paige made a small sound, not surprise exactly, more like relief. Her hand came to my shirt, fingers curling there, holding me in place as she kissed me back. Not like an accident, not like consolation, like she had been waiting too. When we parted, we stayed close, foreheads almost touching, the sink running behind us because apparently neither of us could be trusted with plumbing during emotional milestones. She laughed softly. We're flooding the kitchen. I don't care. You will when we lose the security deposit. I reached behind her and turned off the tap, but I didn't step back. Paige smiled up at me, cheeks pink, eyes bright. So, roommate rule. Technically, I said, we made that rule before we had sufficient evidence. And now? Now I'd like to file an amendment. She slipped her hand into mine again. Approved for review, she said. Then her phone buzzed on the table. We both looked over. Aaron. Clients bailed after all. Still up for that dinner? Paige didn't let go of my hand. She picked up the phone, typed one-handed, and showed me the screen before she sent it. Paige. No, I'm already on a date. Then she hit send, set the phone face down, and looked at me like the candles had been meant for us all along. The morning after I kissed Paige Sullivan in our kitchen, I woke up at 5:12 and stared at my ceiling like it owed me answers. There are kisses you can explain away. A party kiss, a rebound kiss, a champagne at a wedding kiss. Then there was Paige's hand fisted in my shirt, her mouth soft and certain under mine, her laugh against my lips when the sink nearly flooded. That was not explainable. That was a door opening. Across the hall, her bedroom was quiet. Too quiet. Normally, Paige's mornings had a soundtrack. Drawer sliding, hairdryer humming, one irritated "where is it?" addressed to no object in particular. Today, silence. I lay there until 6:03, then gave up and went to make coffee. Our apartment looked guilty. The candles had burned low in their holders. Two wine glasses sat on the counter, one bearing a faint print of Paige's lipstick. Her blue dress was draped carefully over a chair, which did absolutely nothing for my ability to behave like a reasonable man. I was measuring grounds when her door opened. I froze. Paige stepped into the hall wearing an oversized sweatshirt, sleep shorts, and the cautious expression of someone approaching a wild animal that might either cuddle or file paperwork. "Morning," she said. "Morning. Coffee?" "Making it." "Good. Good." We stared at each other over 12 feet of apartment and 10 months of roommate history. Then she said, "Well, this is horrifying." I laughed so hard I spilled coffee grounds on the counter. Paige covered her face. "I'm sorry, I meant good horrifying. Important horrifying. Like a first day at school if school involved kissing your roommate next to a sink. Very specific curriculum. I'm processing." "Same." She came closer, bare feet silent on the floor. "Are you regretting?" "No." Too fast, too honest. I didn't care. "Are you?" Her shoulders loosened. "No." The relief on her face did something reckless to me. I set the scoop down and stepped around the counter. "Then can I say good morning properly?" Her eyes warmed. "Depends. Is this a roommate good morning or a date good morning?" "Definitely not roommate." "Thank God." I cupped her face and kissed her. It was softer than the night before, sleepy and warm, and a little clumsy because we were both smiling. Paige rose onto her toes. Her hand slid around my waist under my old college sweatshirt, and my brain briefly lost every useful function except stay. When we broke apart, she kept her forehead against my chest. "Okay," she said. "That helped. Happy to provide emotional support. You're very service-oriented. I have references." She looked up. "Do you?" "No, I was hoping confidence would carry me." It almost did. The coffee maker gurgled behind us like it was embarrassed. We took our mugs to the couch and sat at opposite ends at first, like two people pretending distance was practical. 5 minutes later, Paige's feet were tucked under my thigh and my hand was wrapped around her ankle, thumb moving absently over the soft skin there. So much for slow. Not physically. We were still careful. But emotionally, it felt like we had stepped onto an escalator that had been moving beneath us for months. "We should talk rules," she said. I groaned. "Already? If we don't, I'll make up worst-case scenarios and alphabetize them." "Fine." Rule 1. No disappearing into awkward silence. Agreed. Rule 2. If one of us needs space, we say it plainly. Rule 3. If this goes badly, we don't weaponize the lease. She nodded, serious now. Rule 4. We don't hide behind the word roommate when we mean scared. That one landed. I traced a small circle on her ankle. That's a good rule. I made it for you. Rude. Accurate. I looked at her then. Really looked. Morning light softened her face. Her hair was loose and messy, her cheeks still pink from being kissed, and she was watching me with a bravery that made my chest ache. "I don't want casual with you," I said. Her breath caught. "I'm not saying we have to rush," I added. "I just mean I don't want to pretend I can be normal about you. I can't. I haven't been normal about you for a while." Paige's eyes went shiny, but her smile was pure trouble. "How long is a while?" I immediately regretted honesty as a concept. Miles. Maybe since the bookshelf. The IKEA bookshelf? You had a screwdriver in your mouth and threatened to end Allen keys as a species. She slowly grinned. That did it for you. I contain multitudes. She crawled across the couch toward me and every thought I had scattered. She stopped with one knee beside my hip, not quite in my lap, close enough that I could feel her warmth. "I liked you before the bookshelf was finished," she admitted. "Impossible. I installed shelf 3 backward." "I know, I thought it was endearing." "It was structurally unsound." So were my feelings. Then she kissed me again, and this time it was not a question. It was a decision. Her fingers slipped into my hair, mine found her waist. The coffee cooled on the table. Somewhere upstairs, our neighbor began tap dancing badly and Paige laughed into my mouth. "Romantic ambiance?" she murmured. "I'll murder him later." No violence on our second date. This is our second date? She leaned back, considering. Last night was accidental but official. This morning is negotiations. Tonight should be intentional. My hand tightened gently at her waist. Tonight? Unless you have plans. I had planned to reorganize my sock drawer. Seductive. It can be moved. Good. She touched the collar of my sweatshirt, suddenly shy. Take me out, Miles. There were moments in life when a man needed to be smooth. This was one of them. I said, anywhere, yes? Absolutely. Paige smiled like I'd done fine anyway. By noon, everyone in my office could tell something was wrong with me. You're smiling at a wall section, my coworker Ravi said. It's a good wall. It's a bad wall. We're demolishing it. I checked my phone under the desk like a teenager. Paige, is it too forward to say I'm excited for tonight? Me. After you moved another man's plate to me? We passed forward several exits ago. Paige. Fair. Wear the green shirt. Me. Bossy. Paige. Correct. Me. I like it. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Paige? I like you. I sat there with my hand over my mouth in a conference room full of carpet samples, feeling like somebody had opened a window in my ribs. Me. I like you too. Then, because apparently the universe enjoyed testing structural integrity, another text came through. Not from Paige. Unknown number. This is Aaron. Paige said she was on a date? With you? I stared at it. A second message followed. Unknown number. I didn't realize you two were a thing. Convenient timing. My jaw tightened before I could stop it. There it was. The little outside shove. The first attempt to make something bright feel shady. I could have answered. I could have defended us. I could have said he'd had his chance and canceled it with clients as an excuse. Instead, I put the phone down, because Paige was not a debate to win with some man who had failed to show up. That evening, I got home with flowers I had overthought for 20 minutes. Not roses, too much. Not grocery daisies, too little. I settled on ranunculus because the florist said they meant charm, and I panicked. Paige opened the door before I could use my key. She wore black jeans, heeled boots, and a cream sweater that slipped off one shoulder like it had signed a private agreement with my sanity. Her eyes dropped to the flowers. Oh, she said softly. Too much? No. She took them like they were fragile. No, it's perfect. Then she looked at my shirt and smiled. You wore green. You gave an order. I made a request. You used punctuation. She laughed, but I saw the question behind it. The nerves. So I told her about Aaron's text before they could become a secret. Her face fell, then hardened. He texted you? I didn't answer. Good. She set the flowers on the counter and came back to me. I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize for him. I know, I'm apologizing because I hate that he got anywhere near. Tonight. I reached for her hand. He didn't. Her fingers threaded through mine. I stepped closer. Paige, I'm here because you asked me to take you out. Because I want to sit across from you on purpose. Because I've wanted that longer than I admitted. The tension left her face by degrees. Say that again, she whispered. I smiled. Which part? The on-purpose part. I lifted our joined hands and kissed her knuckles. I want you on purpose. Her eyes closed briefly like she was saving it. Then she opened them, bright and sure, and tugged me toward the door. Good, she said. Because I'm starving, and if this date goes well, I might let you kiss me in public. I grabbed my coat. This date is going to be legendary. The date was not legendary at first. It was almost ruined by a hostess who lost our reservation, a waiter who called me Mike 3 times, and Paige accidentally flinging a piece of focaccia into my water glass while explaining why cap sleeves were a coward's sleeve. I had never been happier. We ended up at a tiny Italian place 6 blocks from our apartment, seated at the bar because our table had apparently been given to a couple celebrating an anniversary, and according to Paige, we are new enough to be noble about it. She sat close to me on the bar stool, shoulder against my arm, one knee brushing mine whenever she turned. Not accidental. Never accidental now. I was becoming addicted to that. To our first intentional date, she said, lifting her glass. I clinked mine against it. And to coward's sleeves, may they find courage. She laughed, head tilting back, exposing the graceful line of her throat. I tried not to stare like a man writing poetry badly in his head. I failed. Paige caught me. What? Nothing. That was not a nothing look. It was a respectful appreciation look. Of? Your argument against cap sleeves. Miles. I leaned a little closer. You look beautiful. The teasing left her face, replaced by something softer. Oh, she said, you keep saying that. You keep surprising me. I've complimented you before. Not like you meant to kiss me after. My hand was resting on the bar between us. Paige's fingers found mine, tucked themselves into the spaces like they had always belonged there. I do mean to, I said. Her cheeks flushed. Good. The restaurant was warm and loud around us, but the world narrowed down to her thumb moving over mine. The bartender set down our pasta and pretended not to notice we were staring at each other instead of the food. Eventually, Paige cleared her throat. If we don't eat, I'll become dramatic. You already are dramatic. I will become operatic. That sounds expensive. It is. Feed me. So I did the most date-like thing I had ever done in my life. I twirled pasta onto my fork, held it toward her, and tried to look charming rather than terrified. Paige arched one brow. Are you feeding me? I panicked. No, commit. She leaned in and took the bite from my fork. I forgot how to swallow my own wine. Her eyes danced. That worked on you more than I expected. It was a hostile maneuver. It was linguine, weaponized linguine. She laughed and beneath the bar hooked her ankle around mine. By dessert, we were splitting tiramisu and making promises we pretended were casual. If this continues, she said, you have to stop leaving cabinet doors open. If this continues, you have to stop putting mugs on the top shelf like we live in a house of giants. I'm 5'6". Emotionally, you shelve like you're 7 feet tall. She pointed her spoon at me. If this continues, you have to let me fix that navy jacket with the tragic buttons. If this continues, I said, you have to let me build you a proper sewing table. Her spoon lowered. I hadn't meant it to come out so serious, but there it was. A small future sitting between espresso and dessert. A proper sewing table? She asked quietly. By the window, with storage. Something that doesn't wobble every time you fight a zipper. Her eyes shone in the low restaurant light. You've thought about that? I think about you at that table all the time. The noise of the restaurant seemed to dim. Paige reached up and touched my jaw just briefly, her fingers warm. That might be the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. Better than cryptocurrency sugar packets? Don't get cocky. But she leaned in and kissed me anyway, in public. Soft at first, then lingering, her hand still against my jaw, my heart acting like it had been waiting years instead of days. When she pulled away, her smile was shy and wicked all at once. Legendary enough, she whispered. Not even close. I have ambitions. We walked home under streetlights, hand in hand, taking the long route even though it was cold. Paige slipped her fingers into my coat pocket with mine, and we matched our steps without discussing it. Halfway across the little park near our building, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and I felt her hand tense. Aaron. I didn't ask to see it, I didn't need to. Paige stopped walking. He says he hopes I'm not making a mistake just because I was embarrassed. The night sharpened around us. I wanted to be angry. I was angry. But more than that, I wanted to be worthy of the trust she had placed in my hand. What do you want to do? I asked. She looked at me, surprised. Not what should I do? No. Not are you going to threaten him with architecture tools? I'm keeping that private. Her laugh was small, grateful. Then she looked down at the phone again. I want to answer, she said. Not for him. For me. I nodded. She typed while I stood beside her, not hovering, not rescuing, just there. Paige, I'm not embarrassed. I'm happy. Please stop contacting Miles and please stop contacting me. She sent it, then blocked the number. For a moment, she just stared at the dark screen. Then she slipped the phone into her pocket and turned to me. Okay. 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 but her voice trembled. I opened my arms and she stepped into them without hesitation. This wasn't rescue. This was choice. Hers and mine. I wrapped my coat around her as much as I could, and she pressed her face into my chest. I felt her breathe in, then out, the tension leaving in shivers. I hate that I almost went on that date, she said. I kissed the top of her head. I don't. She leaned back to look at me. You don't? No, because you chose differently, not by default. Not because he canceled first. Tonight you chose me with a clear head and very excellent boots. Her eyes softened. I did. And I chose you back. Her hand slid up my chest, then linked behind my neck. Say that again. I was starting to understand she liked hearing the simple things when they were true. I choose you, Paige. The park was quiet. The streetlight painted gold over her hair. Her mouth curved slowly like the words had warmed her from the inside. Good, she whispered, because I choose you too. Then she kissed me under a bare winter tree, and there was nothing cautious about it. Her body fit against mine like an answer. My hand settled at her waist. Hers moved into my hair. The kiss deepened, sweet and certain, until the cold disappeared and every doubt I'd been carrying went silent. When we finally broke apart, Paige laughed breathlessly. We are terrible at slow. We are excellent at intentional. That sounds like something from a self-help book. I'll put it on our sewing table. She smiled at that. Our. Back at the apartment, everything looked different again. The couch where we had negotiated rules. The kitchen where the first kiss happened. The dining nook where another man's plate had become mine. Paige slipped off her boots by the door and suddenly seemed nervous. So, she said. So, do we say goodnight at our separate bedroom doors like Victorian pen pals? I don't know. I've never dated a roommate. Me neither. We could stand awkwardly in the hallway until one of us ages. Tempting. I stepped closer and took her hand. Or we could have one more cup of tea. No pressure, no assumptions. Just, I'm not ready for the night to end. Her face changed with relief so visible it made me ache. Tea, she said. Yes. We made chamomile because Paige insisted caffeine after 9 was a betrayal of the nervous system. Then we sat on the couch under one blanket, even though we owned 3. Her head rested on my shoulder. My fingers traced slow lines over the back of her hand. It was intimate in a way that felt bigger than heat. I'm scared I'll mess this up, she whispered after a while. I turned my head toward hers. How? By wanting too much. By pretending I don't. By making jokes when I should ask for reassurance. I kissed her temple. Then ask. She was quiet for a long moment. Will you still want me tomorrow? She asked. When there are dishes and rent and your tragic cereal on the counter? My chest tightened. I shifted so I could see her face. Yes. No noble cardigan answer. No, just yes. I brushed my thumb along her cheek. I wanted you before candles. I want you after dishes. I'll want you when you're threatening zippers at midnight. Her eyes filled. Then she climbed into my lap and hugged me hard, face tucked into my neck. I held her, one hand spread over her back, the other in her hair. After a minute, she murmured, I'm not sleeping in your room tonight. I know. But I might fall asleep here. I can work with that. She lifted her head, smiling through the softness. You're very patient. I'm suffering heroically. I can tell. Then she kissed me once, slow and tender, and settled against me again. Much later, with Paige asleep on my chest and the apartment dark around us, her phone lit up on the coffee table from an unknown number. One message. Aaron, you'll figure out what he's really like. I looked at it once, then I looked down at Paige, warm and trusting in my arms, and knew the only answer that mattered would be the one I gave her in the morning. The next morning, I told Paige about the message before coffee. Not after. Not once she was smiling. Not when I could soften it into something harmless. She was standing at the counter in socks and my green shirt from the night before, hair messy, one cheek creased from sleeping on my chest. I almost didn't do it. I almost let us have one perfect morning. But Rule 4 existed for a reason. No hiding behind roommate when we meant scared. Erin texted again, I said. Paige turned, mug halfway to her mouth. I handed her the phone. Her face went still as she read it. You'll figure out what he's really like. For a second, our kitchen went quiet in that old, dangerous way. The kind where people invent stories because silence gives them room. Then Paige looked up at me. Is there something I should know? She asked. The question didn't sound accusing. It sounded careful, brave, like she hated needing to ask but trusted me enough to do it anyway. Yes, I said. Her fingers tightened around the mug. My last relationship ended badly, I told her. Not dramatic badly, no secret wife, no crime spree, just I shut down. I got scared. And instead of saying that, I became polite and distant until she did the hard part and left. Paige set the mug down. I made myself keep talking. I told myself I was being kind. I wasn't. I was being a coward, and I don't want to do that with you. My throat felt tight. If you want the ugly truth, that's it. I can look calm when I'm panicking. I can make emotional distance seem like respect. And I am terrified that someday I'll hurt you by trying not to. Paige crossed the kitchen slowly. She stopped in front of me, close enough that I could see the little gold flecks in her eyes. Thank you, she said. I blinked. That's your response? It's my first response. She touched my wrist. My second is that if you try to disappear politely, I will drag a chair in front of your bedroom door and make you discuss your feelings like a hostage negotiator in fuzzy socks. A laugh broke out of me, shaky and relieved. That sounds illegal. It's love, Miles. Sometimes it requires seating. The word love hit the room like a bell. Paige heard it too. Her eyes widened, her mouth parted. I didn't mean, she started. I caught her hand before she could retreat into panic. Don't take it back, she swallowed. It's too soon. Maybe. We've been dating for 3 days. Technically, I've been falling for you for months. Her face softened so completely it hurt to look at. I stepped closer. I'm not asking you to say anything perfectly, but don't take back something true just because it arrived early. Paige's eyes shone. It is true, she whispered. I lifted her hand and pressed it against my chest. Then we'll let it be true, slowly. She gave a tearful little laugh. You and slow, still pretending. I'm committed to the brand. Then she kissed me. Not a frantic kiss, not a first kiss. A morning kitchen kiss, warm and sure, her hand over my heartbeat, mine at her waist. The kind of kiss that didn't erase fear but gave it somewhere safe to sit. When we parted, she kept her forehead against mine. I'm scared too, she said. My family loves by anticipating disappointment. If something good happens, somebody always says, don't get too comfortable. I think I learned to leave one foot near the exit. Then we'll move the furniture. She laughed into my shirt. You would. I'm excellent with a layout. Paige blocked Erin's new number. Then she deleted the thread, not dramatically, not as a performance. Just a small press of her thumb. There, she said. No more letting a man who didn't show up narrate the man who did. I pulled her into my arms. That afternoon we did something wildly romantic. We cleaned the apartment. Paige claimed real love was watching someone scrub a stovetop without being asked. I told her desire had limits and burnt cream sauce was one of them. She wore yellow gloves and sang along badly to old pop songs. I fixed the loose leg on her sewing table, then measured the corner by the window while she pretended not to cry. You're really building it? She asked. I already sketched it. When? At work. Miles. It was during a meeting about parking drainage. Emotionally, I made the right choice. She kissed me beside the measuring tape. After that, we didn't become perfect. We became honest. Sometimes honesty looked like Paige saying, I need reassurance and possibly noodles. Sometimes it looked like me standing in her doorway and admitting, I'm doing the distance thing. I don't want to. Can you sit with me? Sometimes it looked like separate bedrooms and goodnight kisses that lasted too long in the hallway. Sometimes it looked like waking up on the couch again, tangled under one blanket because 3 blankets were apparently for people with weaker feelings. 2 months after the candlelit dinner that wasn't meant for me, our lease renewal arrived. We stared at it on the counter like it was a live animal. Big step, Paige said. Huge. We could be practical. We could. We could discuss pros and cons. Definitely. She tapped the pen against her lip. Pro, rent is terrible everywhere. Pro, I know where you keep the good scissors and fear them. Pro, you make coffee correctly. Pro, you kiss me when the toast burns. Her smile softened. Con? I looked around our apartment. The dining nook, the couch, the kitchen sink that had witnessed history. Con, I said. If this keeps going well, I might want more than being your roommate. Paige went very still. Then she reached for the lease, signed her name, and handed me the pen. Good, she said, because I already want more than being yours. By the following spring, the sewing table was finished. I built it out of pale maple with drawers that closed smoothly and a wide top by the window where morning light spilled over fabric and thread. Paige ran her hands over it like it was something sacred, then turned and kissed me so hard I knocked into the wall. Structurally unsound, I murmured. So are my feelings. We still had the old dining table, the candles too, though they were shorter now, burned down by ordinary nights we kept making special on purpose. Pasta on Tuesdays. Wine in mismatched glasses. Paige in my sweatshirt, me with my sock drawer still shamefully unorganized. A year after that night, I came home early again. This time, I knew what waited behind the door. Garlic butter? Jazz? Candlelight? Paige stood in the kitchen wearing a red dress, her hair pinned up, silver necklace at her throat. 2 plates sat on the table. Only now there was no missing guest, no canceled text, no chair waiting for the wrong man. Just Paige, smiling at me like I was exactly who she had meant to cook for. You're early, she said. I live here. You're still early. I dropped my keys in the bowl and crossed the room to her. Should I disappear like a respectable goblin? She shook her head, eyes bright. Sit down, Miles. So I did. And when she moved around the table, she didn't carry anyone else's plate to me. She carried her own. Then she sat beside me instead of across from me, her knee pressed warmly to mine, her hand finding my hand as if it had been waiting there all along. The candles flickered. The city hummed outside. Paige leaned her head against my shoulder and I understood something simple and enormous. Sometimes love doesn't arrive as fireworks. Sometimes it arrives as a woman in a blue dress, refusing to waste a beautiful dinner. Sometimes it looks like the plate meant for someone else being placed in front of you and realizing with your whole heart that you were the one who came home. What would you have done if your roommate cooked a romantic dinner for a date who never showed, then lit the candles and moved his plate to you? Have you ever experienced something similar? Tell your story in the comments. And for those who would like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships where you'll get shorter exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.